What would you do if your own daughter, the child you sacrificed everything for, looked you in the eye and told you that you weren't good enough to attend her wedding? That you didn't fit the image she wanted to project? Well, I'm about to tell you exactly what happened when my daughter Emma made that choice, and how I made sure she and everyone else would never forget the consequences. But before we dive into this story that literally broke the internet and landed a family in federal prison, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because trust me, you're going to want to follow this journey to its absolutely explosive conclusion. Let me paint you a picture of my life, 2 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my daughter's life. Picture a modest one-bedroom apartment in the older part of town. Not the kind of place you'd see in magazines, but clean, comfortable, and filled with 26 years of memories raising Emma as a single mother. I'm sitting at my small kitchen table at 11:30 p.m., still in my nurse scrubs after pulling a double shift at the hospital. The table is covered with wedding planning magazines, vendor quotes, and most importantly, mason jars. Not just any mason jars, mind you, but my secret savings system that I'd been building for 3 years. You see, Emma had no idea that every time she called me excited about another wedding detail, the dress, the flowers, the photographer, I was quietly setting aside money to help make her dreams come true. $20 here, $50 there. Sometimes I'd skip lunch for a week just to add another bill to those jars. That night, I was counting it all out for the first time. Crumpled 20s, carefully folded hundreds, even rolls of quarters from doing other nurses' laundry during my breaks. $15,000. $15,000 that represented 3 years of double shifts, skipped meals, and wearing the same uniform until it practically fell apart. I was planning to surprise Emma the next day. I had it all figured out. I'd tell her that her dad might not have been there to walk her down the aisle, but he would have wanted her to have the wedding of her dreams, and this money was my way of making sure that happened. Then my phone buzzed. Now, Emma and I texted all the time. Usually, it was her sending me photos of wedding dress options or asking my opinion on centerpieces. But something about this message felt different the moment I saw it pop up on my screen. Mom, there's been a change in wedding plans. The venue has strict capacity limits. We had to make some difficult cuts to the guest list. I stared at that message for a full minute before it really sank in. Cuts to the guest list? But Emma had been planning this wedding for over a year. She knew exactly how many people the venue could hold. We talked about the guest list dozens of times. My hands were actually shaking as I called her. And when Emma answered, I immediately knew something was very, very wrong. Gone was the excited, bubbly voice of a bride-to-be. Instead, I heard this cold, almost rehearsed tone that I'd never heard from my daughter before. Emma, honey, what do you mean cuts to the guest list? Are you okay? Did something happen with the venue? Mom, the wedding has become more intimate than we originally planned. David's family has some very important business associates attending, and we need to prioritize certain relationships. Important business associates? Prioritize certain relationships? This wasn't the Emma I raised. This wasn't the girl who used to curl up next to me on the couch every Sunday to watch old movies and plan her future wedding, complete with stick figure drawings of all our family and friends celebrating together. Emma, I don't understand. Are you saying I'm not invited to your wedding? The silence on the other end of that phone call was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15 seconds of my own daughter trying to figure out how to tell her mother that she wasn't wanted at the most important day of her life. Mom, please try to understand. This wedding isn't just about David and me anymore. It's become this huge networking event. David's parents have invested so much money, and there are going to be photographers, and social media coverage, and what, Emma? And I'll embarrass you? I didn't say that. But that's what you mean, isn't it? That's when I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of breaking down crying, instead of begging and pleading like she probably expected, I took a deep breath and said something that clearly caught her off guard. Emma, I've been saving money to help with your wedding. I have $15,000 sitting on my kitchen table right now. Money I've been setting aside for 3 years, working extra shifts, sacrificing everything I could think of because I wanted to contribute to your special day. You know what she said to me? You know how my daughter, the child I raised alone, the girl I worked myself to the bone to put through college, responded to that? We don't need your money, Mom. David's family is handling everything. They don't want any outside contributions. Outside contributions. Like I was some stranger offering charity instead of her mother trying to show love the only way I knew how. Emma, this is insane. I'm your mother. I changed your diapers. I stayed up all night when you were sick. I worked 2 jobs to pay for your college. I held your hand through every heartbreak. And now you're telling me I can't come to your wedding because I'll embarrass you in front of David's rich family? Mom, you just don't understand the kind of event this has become. These people, they're not like us. They have expectations and standards and… Look, David's parents have been so good to me. They've welcomed me into their family in a way that feels really good. In a way that feels really good, like being welcomed by strangers was somehow better than the love I'd given her for 26 years. So that's it? You're choosing them over me? I'm not choosing anyone over anyone. I'm asking you to respect this decision. Please, Mom, just this once. Can you think about what's best for me instead of what you want? And that's when she said the words that changed everything between us forever. Mom, you just don't fit the image we're going for. Please respect our decision. I sat there in my kitchen, surrounded by those mason jars full of money, staring at my phone screen showing call ended, and I felt something inside me break. But it wasn't just my heart breaking, though that was certainly shattered into a million pieces. No, something else broke too. Something that had kept me quiet and accommodating and always putting Emma's needs before my own dignity. That part of me was gone, and what replaced it was cold, hard determination. I was about to set my phone down and probably cry myself to sleep when something interesting happened. You know how your phone sometimes suggests people you might know based on your contacts and social media activity? Well, a notification popped up that made my blood run cold. Emma Chen is posting on Instagram. See what she's sharing. Now, I wasn't really on social media much. I had Facebook to see pictures of my coworkers' grandkids, and that was about it. But curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on that notification. What I saw made me realize that being uninvited to the wedding was just the tip of the iceberg. My daughter hadn't just decided I wasn't good enough for her new life. She had completely erased me from her story. Post after post of Emma with David's family. Pictures of her calling David's mother Mom. Captions talking about how grateful she was to finally have real family who understood her ambitions. Photos of family dinners with the Morrisons with captions like, "So blessed to have found my real home." But the one that nearly made me throw my phone against the wall was a post from just 3 days earlier. It was a picture of Emma in her wedding dress at a fitting, surrounded by David's female relatives, with a caption that made my hands shake with rage. Feeling so emotional during my final dress fitting. It's been such a journey growing up, essentially orphaned, never knowing what real family felt like, until David's parents took me in and showed me what unconditional love really means. I can't wait to officially become a Morrison and leave my old life behind forever. New beginnings, real family, blessed bride. Essentially orphaned, old life behind forever, real family. 26 years of my life reduced to an obstacle she needed to overcome. Every sacrifice, every double shift, every time I held her when she cried, every dollar in those mason jars, all of it dismissed as something she needed to escape from. I screenshot every single post, every caption, every comment where she played the poor orphan girl who finally found real love and acceptance. I saved it all. Then I walked over to my bathroom mirror and looked at myself for a long, hard minute. I saw a 58-year-old woman in wrinkled scrubs, with tired eyes and hands that showed the wear of decades of hard work. I saw someone who had spent so many years putting everyone else first that I'd forgotten what it felt like to fight for myself. But as I stood there, something shifted. Maybe it was seeing myself through Emma's eyes for the first time, seeing what she was so desperate to hide from her new family. Or maybe it was realizing that my unconditional love had somehow taught her that she could treat me however she wanted without consequences. Either way, that woman in the mirror made a decision that night. If Emma wanted to play the game of social media perfection and family loyalty, then we were going to play. But she had no idea who she was really dealing with. You see, Emma had forgotten something important about her mother. She'd forgotten that before I became a nurse, I was a young woman who had to fight for everything I'd ever gotten. She'd forgotten that I'd raised her alone, not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to leave her father when he showed his true colors. And she'd definitely forgotten that nurses are some of the most resourceful, persistent, and protective people on the planet. When we see someone we love in danger, we don't just stand by and watch, because what Emma didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that I was about to discover something about her perfect new family that would make her wedding day front page news. Something that would expose not just David's family, but would reveal that my daughter wasn't just a social climber trying to escape her roots. She was an unwitting victim in a con game so sophisticated, so dangerous, that federal agents had been watching the Morrison family for months. And the wedding she was so desperate to keep me away from? It wasn't a celebration of love at all. It was the final stage of an elaborate fraud scheme, and my daughter was both the perfect mark and the perfect accomplice. 1 week before Emma's wedding, I'm sitting in a 24-hour diner called Mel's, you know the type, fluorescent lights, coffee that could strip paint, and vinyl booths that have seen better decades. I'm still in my scrubs after another double shift, but sleep is the last thing on my mind. I've got my old laptop open, the one Emma helped me pick out 5 years ago for staying connected. Ironic, isn't it? The same device she used to teach me about Facebook was now going to help me uncover the truth she was so desperate to hide. Now, I need you to understand something about nurses. We're trained to notice details, to spot patterns, to dig deeper when something doesn't add up. And everything about Emma's sudden transformation was screaming that something was very, very wrong. I started with the basics. David Morrison Jr., Emma's perfect fiancé. On the surface, everything looked golden. Graduated from an elite business school, works for his family's company, Morrison Luxury Development, drives a BMW, lives in a penthouse downtown, the kind of guy every parent would want their daughter to marry. Right? But here's the thing about being a nurse for 30 years, you develop a sixth sense for when people are performing instead of being genuine. And as I scrolled through David's social media, something felt staged. Every photo was too perfect. Every caption sounded like it was written by a marketing team. Even his candid moments with Emma looked rehearsed. But what really caught my attention were the comments on his posts, specifically the ones from his family. Patricia Morrison, his mother, commenting things like, "Another successful acquisition, darling," on photos of David with Emma. Acquisition? Not another beautiful relationship, or so happy for you both. Acquisition. Like Emma was a business deal. That's when I decided to dig deeper into Morrison Luxury Development, and what I found made my blood run cold. 3 years ago, the company was under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission for fraudulent real estate schemes. 2 years ago, they were accused of using fake investors to inflate property values. And just 6 months ago, right around the time David started getting serious with Emma, there were allegations of money laundering through high-end events and fake charity fundraisers. But here's what made my hands start shaking. Every single investigation had been dropped, every case dismissed. Every allegation mysteriously disappeared from public records. How does a family with that many red flags keep slipping through the cracks? That's when I remembered Jake Morrison. No relation to David's family. Just an unfortunate coincidence of names. Jake was an investigative journalist who'd been in a terrible car accident about 2 years ago. I was his night shift nurse during his recovery, and we'd talked for hours about his work exposing corporate corruption. Jake was one of those reporters who actually cared about the truth, not just the story. During his recovery, he'd told me that if I ever needed help with anything at all, I should call him. He said I'd saved his sanity during those dark weeks when he thought he'd never walk again. I never imagined I'd take him up on that offer. But at 6 a.m., after 3 hours of research that left me more confused and terrified than ever, I called Jake. "Margaret? It's 6 a.m. Are you okay? Is everything all right?" I told him everything. The wedding, the disinvitation, Emma's social media lies, and most importantly, what I'd found about the Morrison family. There was silence on the other end for so long that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Jake spoke, and what he said made my heart stop. "Margaret, I want you to come to my office right now. Don't talk to anyone else about this. Don't post anything online. Don't even call Emma. Just come here now." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the offices of the City Tribune, watching Jake pace back and forth like a caged animal. He kept muttering things like, "I knew it," and finally, "and this is it." "Margaret," he finally said, turning to face me, "you may have just handed me the biggest story of my career. But more importantly, you might have just saved your daughter's life." Saved her life? What was he talking about? The Morrison family isn't just running financial scams, they're running long-term cons on young women from middle-class families. Emma isn't David's first fiancée, she's his third. Third? But David was only 28. How could he have had two previous fiancées? The first one was Sarah Chen. Different Chen, no relation to you, a nurse from Portland. They got engaged, had a big society wedding planned, and then suddenly she disappeared. Just vanished. No forwarding address, no contact with friends or family. The official story was that she got cold feet and ran away. What really happened to her, we don't know. But 6 months after Sarah disappeared, David was engaged to Rebecca Martinez, a marketing executive from Denver. Same pattern, whirlwind romance, integration into the Morrison family, big wedding planned. And then Rebecca had a nervous breakdown right before the wedding and was quietly committed to a private psychiatric facility by the Morrison family. Is she still there? She was released 2 months ago. Jake tracked her down, and she told me something that will haunt me forever. She said the Morrison family had systematically isolated her from her own family, convinced her she was mentally unstable, and then used her marketing contacts to run investment scams on her clients. That's when it hit me like a freight train. Emma's job. She worked at Preston & Associates, one of the city's most exclusive marketing firms. Her clients included celebrities, politicians, wealthy business owners, exactly the kind of people who would be perfect targets for investment fraud. Jake, Emma's been talking about her clients constantly since she started dating David. She's so proud of landing these high-profile accounts, and she's always mentioning how impressed David's parents are with her work. "Margaret, what exactly has Emma told David's family about her clients?" I thought back to all the dinner conversations, all the times Emma had gushed about how interested Patricia Morrison was in her work, how many questions David's father asked about her client meetings. Everything. She's told them everything. Client names, project details, financial information, personal struggles. Emma thinks she's just sharing her work life with her new family, but she's been feeding them intelligence for months. Jake pulled out a thick file folder and spread photos across his desk. Pictures of David with Sarah Chen, David with Rebecca Martinez, and recent photos of David with Emma. But it wasn't the photos that made me gasp. It was the pattern. Every woman looked similar. Brunette, petite, successful but not wealthy, from working-class families. Every woman worked in fields that gave them access to affluent clients. And every woman had been systematically isolated from their families before disappearing from their lives entirely. "They're not just running cons," I whispered. "They're harvesting these women's entire professional networks and then discarding them. Margaret, there's something else. Something I found yesterday that made me realize we're running out of time." Jake turned his laptop toward me, and what I saw made the room spin. It was an audio file dated just 3 days earlier. The label read, "Morrison Family, Private Conversation, Kitchen Security Camera." One of our sources inside their household staff managed to get us this recording. "Margaret, I need you to prepare yourself for what you're about to hear. The wedding is in 4 days. Have we extracted everything we need from the Chen girl's client list? Almost. She's been very cooperative, though she has no idea what she's really doing. We have contact information and financial details for over 200 potential marks. And after the wedding? Same as always. We'll create a situation that makes it impossible for her to maintain contact with her previous life. The psychiatric route worked well with the Martinez girl. Actually, I was thinking something simpler this time. The mother has already been eliminated from the picture. Emma handled that beautifully by cutting her off. Without family support, it'll be easy to convince everyone that she's had some kind of breakdown and needs to be institutionalized for her own safety. Excellent. And once she's been declared mentally incompetent, we'll have legal access to all her professional accounts and client relationships. We can milk those contacts for at least 2 years before we need to dispose of her entirely. They weren't just planning to ruin my daughter's life. They were planning to erase her from existence. I sat in that newsroom, staring at Jake's concerned face, and felt something primal and fierce wake up inside me. These people thought they could use my daughter like a disposable tool. They thought they could manipulate her into cutting off her family, harvest everything valuable from her life, and then discard her like garbage. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. "Jake," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days, "I need your help. Not just as a journalist, but as someone who owes me a favor. Whatever you need, I need you to help me save my daughter. And I need you to help me make sure the Morrison family never does this to another family again. And I need you to bring cameras. Because in 3 days, at that wedding Emma is so desperate to keep me away from, I'm going to expose everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every crime." But what I didn't know, what Jake was about to tell me, was that the Morrison family had made one crucial mistake. A mistake so big that it had already brought federal agents to their door. Because while we'd been investigating them, they'd been under surveillance by the FBI. And the wedding that Emma thought was going to be her perfect day? It was actually going to be a trap, not for Emma. Not for me, for them. In the next part of the story, I'm going to tell you about the moment I walked into that wedding venue, not as the embarrassing mother Emma was ashamed of, but as the woman who was about to save her daughter from a fate worse than death. But here's what's going to shock you. The FBI agents who were already at that wedding weren't there because of my investigation. They were there because Rebecca Martinez, David's previous victim, had escaped from that psychiatric facility with evidence that would bring down the entire Morrison crime family. And when Emma saw me walk through those doors, dressed not like the working-class mother she was ashamed of, but like the powerful woman I'd always been underneath, she realized that everything she thought she knew about her life was about to change forever. If you want to see the moment I crashed that wedding with federal agents, news cameras, and evidence that would make headlines around the world, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because the next part is going to show you what happens when a mother's love meets a criminal family's worst nightmare. And trust me, you've never seen a wedding crash like this one. See you in the next part of the story.